Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Zoom meeting for Capacitor Metals. I'm Dave Hodge. I'm chairman of the board of Capacitor Metals. I also represent Zimtu Capital Corp, who is the host of this meeting. I'd like to start off by well, of course, as I did, welcoming everybody to this meeting, and start off by introducing some of the capacitor personnel that are here. And Colton, if you want to bring up that slide. First of all, of course, myself, chairman of the board, and Dr. Axel Hoppe. He's a chemical engineer. He ran HC Stark. He was president of the Global Tantalum and Niobium Association, referred to as the TIC. And his advice over the years when he was with Commerce and now he's with Capacitor has been extremely valuable because he knows the industry. Director sitting beside me here, Justin Schrom, worked for Commerce Resources for a number of years, knows the database, knows the story, and is a true believer in the Blue River tantalum and niobium deposit. And certainly any information you're looking for, you want to talk to somebody about it, you can phone the office and talk to Justin. He's got direct input into the board of directors, as he is one. And next, of course, Max Lentz. He's from Kamloops, which is the larger center near the deposit. And Max's expertise, not to be rude, but he is a politician, you know. So anyway, that's Max. And whenever I tell jokes about Max, he always smiles. So he'll have a word or two to say later in the presentation when we talk about our extremely positive relationship with the community and with the Indigenous community. Certainly, most recently, we've added to our advisory board the latest president of the International Tantalum and Niobium Association, Dan Persecchio, and he also is a PhD. I mean, we've got the brains behind this deposit. We've got the deposit. All we need is your money, and we'll have a true winner. And I think by the end of this presentation, you'll realize that the opportunity that Capacitor has grabbed a hold of it in this very tough market. We were able to negotiate an extremely advantageous deal with Commerce, partly because they were trying to get rid of me, I think. That opportunity we have translated to a public company or the beginnings of a public company, and we offer you participation in that at that extremely discounted rate. In any event, to tell you more about the story, and I hope this doesn't confuse you, because the bottom line is this is a great opportunity to make money, and I'll turn it over to Capacitor's new president, new chairman of the, no, he's not chairman of the board, I am. He's the president and the CEO of Capacitor Metals, formerly from Commerce. Before I turn it over to him, we have somebody else in the audience that is part of the important part of the Capacitor team, and that's Mike Hodge. He's here in the audience. but he was the one with the late Dave Heyman that staked the property some 25 years ago. The results that we have got since then certainly are very dramatic. But Mike had a very direct connection to the property as he staked it. He worked on it for a number of years with Derouge Geological. And he is sort of our man on the ground. You know, we own an office building there. We own well, they call it a shed, but I call it more complimentary, well, it's a shed. Anyway, it's full of core and equipment, and Mike's the one that we rely on to look after that, as well as roads come up in the area. Sometimes we're responsible for those. So lots of things for a man on the ground to do. The other person I probably should have mentioned is Stefan Bogner, who writes Rockstone Research. And Stefan has been on the case for a while and certainly will keep you informed with his commentary and information about our progress. Anyway, after all of that, Chris was worried he was going to have to talk the whole meeting, so I decided I better get going. Anyway, Chris Grove, we're certainly pleased to have him present this opportunity.
Thank you, Dave. Very much appreciate the introduction. And to go back 25 years, Dave introduced me to the Blue River Project in 1999, at the same time that Mike was on site staking it with Dave Heyman. And I started working for Zimtu and Commerce in 2004. And so it's been a very exciting 25 years. But part of the reality of today's presentation and bringing this opportunity to you is literally there has never been more interest in this project than there is right now. And that is the reality. As much as we have had a significant success in advancing the project under Commerce Resources, raising and spending over $34 million on defining the resources on 3 separate deposits. Right now, there is more global industry interest in this project than we've ever had before. Many of you will have seen this map before. It shows the location of the set of claims. Capacitor owns all of these claims outright. As many of you will know, the project itself has excellent infrastructure, which is the only thing that Commerce Resources lacks with the Ashram, which of course is the best rare earth element project in North America. But the Blue River Project has everything there already on site. And, you know, in terms of the details, the Yellowhead Highway is the western boundary of our claim group. Moving to the east, you would go across a little bridge across the North Thompson River. Then you would go across the main rail line, which runs on our claim group. Then you would turn left and go up a logging road to the actual deposit, and you would be driving under the hydroelectric lines that connect back to the Revelstoke Dam. So all of that infrastructure is in place. Next slide. In terms of the Upper Fur, this is one of the largest defined resources of tantalum in the world. We released positive economics on it in 2011. We updated the resource in 2013. We had some metallurgical improvements following that. At the time in 2011, it was the world's largest and one of the lowest, if not the lowest cost potential near-term supplier of conflict-free tantalum. This is the first time you've heard those words from my mouth, but this is also one of the main reasons that the globe, the industry, are more focused on this project, because it is 100% ethical tantalum production. Next slide. This is some of the history of the project. As you can see, we picked it up in 1999, carrying it through to the release of a positive PEA authored by AMEC Foster Wheeler in 2011. Next slide. These are some photographs that some of you have seen before. You can see in the upper left-hand corner the outline of the upper fur carbonatite, which extends about 1 kilometer east to west. And the actual deposit is would be about 30 meters thick in most places. On the right-hand side, you can see the view from the upper fur carbonatite looking down into the valley. You can see, I believe, the highway, the river, and maybe the rail line there as well. In the lower left-hand corner, you can see one of the bulk sample pits. And then in the lower right-hand corner, under the blue tarps, that's approximately 2,200 tons of material from the bulk sample permit we took, extracted material from in 2010. Next slide. In terms of that essential infrastructure, you can see some of it here. You can see the little bridge across the North Thompson River. You can see the main Canadian National Railway line, which is on our set of claims. And as I say, all of the essential infrastructure is already on site, which obviously reduces the CapEx for the project significantly. Next slide. These are some of the metrics from the PEA authored by AMEC Foster Wheeler in 2011. As it is stated here, the PEA defined the Blue River Project as a potential large-scale, low-cost producer of conflict-free tantalum, as well as significant niobium. The deposit itself is about an 8-to-1 ratio, niobium to tantalum, but the higher value of tantalum means that it is really slightly more a tantalum primary project, or you could call it a tantalum niobium co-project. Next slide. As I said, we updated the mineral resource in 2013. So the indicated resource right now is 48.4 million tons, and the inferred resource is 5.4 million tons, which leads to approximately 25 million pounds of tantalum in the resource and about 200 million pounds of niobium. Next slide. Ultimately, we increased the recovery rates for the project over the base case that was set in the PEA, and that would lead to better economic metrics, which we would look to capture in the next economic update. Next slide. At this point in time, I would like to turn it over to my longtime associate, Justin Schrun, to tell you a little bit about the United States Defense Department's Defense Industrial Base Consortium.
Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. The U.S. Defense Industrial Base Consortium is a whole new world for us. What it is an association of companies of all different types that are directly relevant and important to the United States defense and security. We are now a member of the U.S., it's called the DIBC, that's what I'll call it from now on. It was quite a process, I can tell you, getting in, but we are in. And last week, Dave Hodge and myself attended the inaugural session symposium of the DIBC in San Diego, about 600 attendees. To give you a sense of the importance, there are only 4 miners that we are aware of down there. But at no point did anyone deny just how important we were. And the open plenary session, they did a great job of announcing to everyone that the miners are here, the tantalum miners are here, and that simple act led to us being actively sought out by several extremely important defense and aerospace companies. I can't say their names right now, obviously, but the big boys. So that conversation has started. It was a serious conversation at the show. And we've subsequently had emails back and forth. I'm hoping to have a bit more to report in the next few weeks. But they have spoken to both Dave and I about various funding mechanisms and access to capital. So with that, I'll hand it back. Actually, I think next slide, please, Colton. And then the next slide, please. So with that, I'd like to call on Max, who is in the room. Max Les, director, who is located in Kamloops. And Max, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Pleased to meet you all. If you could take me back to slide number 5, I'd just like to say, start off with that I have a real deep connection with the North Thompson Valley. As you can see on the map there are Kamloops, and you can see the Blue River projects in the red box. Well, up that valley, there's several little communities, okay? Blue River is the community closest to the project. There's a small community to south is called Avola. Then there's Barrier and Clearwater and Kamloops, and north is Valemont. So I started my connection with the North Thompson Valley back in 2010. But what I'd like to do is take a minute to, you can go forward now back to slide 15. There we can see how Dave was signing an agreement with the CIMC back in 2006. But what is tantalum used for? Well, capacitors are a big part of tantalum use. And why we call it capacitor metals is because of that. And now if we look at this unit here, right here, this is a cell phone. You can see how big it was. This was the first cell phones that came out, okay? And of course, the capacitors in here are very large. So as we move forward, well, they started getting smaller. This is the first, what we call the flip phone, Motorola flip phone. So you can see how much smaller it is based off the Star Trek communicator flipping. And of course, as time goes on, electronics changes into very small units. And of course, what we have today, okay? So the capacitor, the tantalum is a very important mineral for electronics, okay? So back in 1988, late August of 1988, I was going to school. I was doing my undergrad in business, and I had an opportunity to get into another business, my third business, of selling cell phones in Kamloops. So actually, this will lead into, as we go forward, into the North Thompson Valley here in a minute. And I was actually the first person in Kamloops to make a cell phone call, okay? And while I was going to the university, what do? I bring my cell phone to the university. I was the first person in the university to have a cell phone. Today, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody without one, okay? So moving forward to 2010, I had an opportunity to join what's called the Thompson-Nicola Regional District, TNRD. And that's where Dave likes to tease me about being a politician. Well, my background is actually, I've got over 40 years of business ownership. I just looked at myself as a business person and political chair. But Dave used to always call me the mayor of Blue River. So, and anyways, one of my things that I really wanted to do when I got into the situation of being the director, electoral area director for the Blue River area, is I wanted to bring cell phone technology up there because I had this background in cell phones, and I had a personal friend who was the VP, one of the senior VPs, and in those days it was called BC Cellular. And so I went to work on this project, and in 2.5 years, the first of the 3 cell phone towers that I got was put into Blue River. So that led me to meet Dave and Commerce and other people, but it also led me to develop a relationship with the CIMC First Nations. And I worked closely with their their economic development manager throughout this whole process. And the CIMC are very business-oriented people. They are owners of many businesses. They are partners in many businesses throughout the North Thompson Valley and all throughout BC. I actually had that economic development manager, and I'm now right now sort of semi-retired, but I'm enjoying my life teaching at the same university. So I actually had a member of the CIMC come into the university and do a talk to our students, a number of our students. So my relationship is still very strong with them. And when we got the cell towers going, okay, the CIMC at that time, we're in partnership with a company in Kamloops called Highland Power. So I made sure that they got the contracts for putting the power into all 3 cell sites, which now gives us cellular connection from Kamloops past Blue River, almost about 90% coverage. And they worked with him very closely in other things like an archaeological assessment, which has to be done on any provincial crown lands before any development can be put in. And I was able to develop the relationship to the point where I was able to get them to sign off their AOA archaeological assessment in 3 weeks. And that was really a milestone. TELUS had never gotten one done under 8 months. So moving forward now, being part of the Capacitor board, I've reached out again to the CIMC and at the Kamloops CAG conference, Kamloops Exploration Conference in April 9th, I set up a meeting with some of the CIMC people, and Dave and Chris and Justin and myself had a meeting with them. And then I set up another meeting on August the 1st online. And now I'm working to set up a meeting with their chief and counsel. The CIMC, like I said, are very, very business orientated people. And they have what's called the CIMC Resources Group. Okay. So it's a separate entity within the organization. So how their organization works, they have a chief and counsel, is very similar to what a mayor and councilors would be. And that's the political body of the organization. And the Natural Resources Group, or the Resources Group, reports to chief and counsel, but they work on their own and they have their own board of directors. So they would be making the business decisions. And then, of course, the chief and counsel, if they back it, then they move forward with whatever business it is. So in our meetings with them, we made it very clear to them that we were more than just interested in signing another MOA or MOU or exploration agreement, that we really want to work with them closely. We want to work with all local governments in the valley, and they're a local government, but there's a strategic alignment with the CIMC that's going to be very important for us. So we've told them that we really want them to be part of our organization, to partner with us in a certain manner, so that when it comes time to get through all the provincial and federal red tape, that we could move through it much quicker. So that's a little bit of the background about how our relationship is with the CIMC. And I'm looking forward to setting up, I'm working with their CAO, Chief Administrative Officer right now, to set up a meeting, hopefully in September or early October, with the Chief and Counsel, so that we can do a proper presentation to them and start trying to develop this partnership.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Max. Really appreciate it. And as Max pointed out, we've had a long relationship in speaking to the previous chief and counsel of the CIMC, and we certainly look forward to that next in-person meeting. Next slide. Yours truly was carrying the capacitor torch to Tokyo last week and attended the most recent 65th General Assembly and 50th anniversary of the Tantalum Niobium International Study Center, which was in Tokyo. You can see in the photograph there, Mount Fuji superimposed behind Tokyo. The platinum sponsor was JX Advanced Metals Corporation. I met with JX, and that was the third time I had met with JX, and they are the world's largest tantalum processor, as JX acquired the German company HC Stark back in 2018, and that was the company that our associate, Dr. Axel Hoppe, used to be the COO of. Next slide. We're very happy that Capacitor Metals is now a member of the International Tantalum and Niobium Study Center, following up on the over 20 years that Commerce Resources was a member of the association. Next slide. This is yours truly mugging away with Dr. Dan Persico on the photograph on the left. And then on the right-hand side with Ian Margerison, who's the executive marketing manager for the TIC. Dan stepped down as the all-time longest running president of the TIC, and a new president was appointed last week, and that is Sylvana Failing. We're very happy to have Dan assisting us with Capacitor and being on our advisory board. Next. In terms of the takeaways from this conference, basically increased global demand for tantalum across the board. Some of those demand drivers would be wireless, data storage, semiconductors, EVs, AI, radio frequency and microwave filters, new medical implants, and aerospace, which apparently is growing faster than global GDP. In addition, what was basically an ongoing theme through this conference was the increased global anxiety on tantalum's origin and method of production. Arguably, African material is plagued by a lack of clarity on the production methods, whether it's ethical or not. And in fact, there was quoted a position taken by some OEMs to source no African material. In terms of other aspects of tantalum supply, recycling was called a drop in the bucket. And secondly, what was expected to be a significant amount of tantalum production was supposed to be coming from lithium primary production, but that essentially over the last 6 years has been underwhelming. This leads us to the conclusion that there is increased global focus on new sources of ethical production, and that is Capacitor Metals. Next slide. Now, as a brand new member of the TIC, we received this email yesterday from the new president, Silvana Failing. As you can see, effective September 27th, 2024, quote, the U.S. administration has made a final determination regarding the implementation of U.S. tariffs on tantalum unwrought, including bars and rods obtained simply by sintering, and tantalum powders from China. These tariffs will go into effect on September 27th, 2024. As mentioned by our former president, Dr. Dan Persico, the TIC is not in a position to take sides on these tariffs. The TIC made attempts to highlight to the United States Trade Representative the unintended consequences of such measures, which may place some of its members, specifically U.S.-based members and manufacturers, in a challenging position. However, these efforts have not been successful. The bottom line is that we do expect a much more an increased focus as of September 27th on new tantalum production that doesn't go through China. So we're very excited about this because that's exactly what Capacitor is. Next slide.
If I could just mention that.
Go back a slide.
There may be a connection between Justin and I being at the DOD conference and these new tariffs coming up. And there, Justin and I are there trying to target somebody that might have an interest. And what happens? We get targeted because of the tantalum. And clearly, I've never been targeted like that. Usually I'm the guy with the rifle. These guys, anyway, it's pretty exciting to realize that after all of these years of wanting the supply chain urgency to motivate the market in tantalum, I can see now that what was missing was the money. And these tariffs point out that supply chain issues are about money. And that leads us to Capacitor, which is in a position to supply the globe with tantalum in the coming years. This is your opportunity to be part of that. I hope you are, and I hope that we are able to make you money in the process.
Thank you. When I was in Tokyo last week as well, I had a meeting at the Canadian Embassy with Canada's Trade Commissioner to Japan, Hiroyuki Kunitake, and along with our longtime associate, Kazuo Machida. Mike and I took Kaz to Blue River for a site visit in 2016, I believe. And in the meeting I had with the trade commissioner, there were two representatives from British Columbia. both on the part of Canada and British Columbia. They said, what can we do to assist you in advancing capacitor metals? One of the things that was suggested is, first off, that the world's largest tantalum processor is the Japanese company JX Metals. And ultimately, if JX has an intent to partner with Capacitor, that investment possibility could be essentially covered off by the Japanese government under an amount of capital that's put in the hands of JOGMEC. And so we were very interested to hear about that, and we will be looking forward to updating you on that possibility. Next slide. So at this point in time, just a very brief mention, Blue River or the Upper Fur was always positioned to be, and it continues to be positioned to produce tantalum and niobium oxides. This is the first mention really of niobium here, but the Toshiba CBMM titanium niobium battery has been called the most optimal design of the lithium ion battery for EVs, in so much that it allows for completely recharging the battery in less than 10 minutes. And so this has led to already a significant increase in niobium oxide demand. The majority of niobium producers produce ferroniobium, but the Upper Fur and Blue River was always, and is still intended to produce tantalum and niobium oxides, for which we're seeing the greatest increase in industry interest. Next slide. Ultimately, to start wrapping things up here, tantalum is facing a critical supply shortage as demand rises. This is a world-class tantalum and niobium project. It is an advanced project with significant work, over $34 million completed on it so far. Historically, in the economics, it is a low-cost potential producer of both tantalum and niobium oxides, fully serviced with great infrastructure in mining-friendly British Columbia, Canada, with a strong management team with experience in tantalum. We did a field program in April of this year, and so please expect a new 43-101 to be released very shortly. Next slide. Previous slide, this slide, next steps. We are looking to process some of the 500 to 600 tons of bulk sample material we have stored in a warehouse in Richmond. We are looking to do an economic update with a scoping study with 2024 data inputs with a higher tantalum value than that was used in 2011. With a potential production scenario that will allow us to extend the current resource to over 30 years. We continue to work on the financing, which is available to anyone online today. We are looking to secure an industry partner and to again start the environmental data collection for the Environmental and Social Impact Assessment Certificate. And of course, our goal is to finally submit an application for a mining permit. These are some of the groups we're working with right now, and we look forward to updating you on all aspects for Capacitor, including when Capacitor is likely to be a public company. Thank you very much for visiting with us today. As Dave said earlier, his name is Dave Hodge, but Justin and I here at the office will be happy to take your call at any time, as will Dave.
But I think it's important, Chris, that we point out that if you could bring the audience back up, Colton, point out that we're happy to take questions now.
Right.
And I was supposed to mention this in my opening, but if anybody has any questions, please feel free to speak up. You can use the text message thing. You could wave your hand. Use the feature on Zoom that puts your little hand up. But we're here to answer your questions. I think, at this time I should tell you that the deck or the presentation that was shown to you today will be emailed to you. And it certainly contains a lot more factual information than we could verbalize. And we will also send a copy of Stefan Wagner's Rockstone Research Report, which goes through the complete opportunity We will also send you a PDF of the opportunity file. It might be labeled as a PP doc, but I'd like you to think of it as the opportunity file. At this point, do we have any questions that
You can feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions.
yeah, go ahead, Alan.
You're still muted, Alan.
Yeah, just wondering how long you think you will be before you actually get registered as a public company.
You know, I feel like telling Colton to mute you back again because that question is the forever asked question and very difficult to answer because in many respects, it is in the company's hands. It is in the shareholders' hands in terms of financing. It's in the regulatory bodies of both the Securities Commission and the exchange. Yet we're always the one that's asked when this magic is going to happen. Well, the best answer I can give you would be given financing, we could be public in 3 to 4 months. But generally speaking, the length of time it takes to get public is tied up in the company's hands and the shareholders' hands. The regulatory aspect is just one that you have to comply to. So you follow the rules, it's kind of easy. The tough part is raising the money, and that's really the intent of this meeting today.
Thank you. Yeah, you did. So basically, would you come back do we have to actually vote on this or just goes ahead when the financing's in place?
Everybody's money that went into the company so far understood that the intent was to go public. So no, it wouldn't require a shareholder vote. If we decided to sell the asset after taking your money, then maybe that would require a shareholder vote, but going public won't.
So when would the Blue River shares be distributed to Capacitor? When are you thinking that would happen? I understand that's what's in the process as well.
Yes, that is a regulatory issue, and we can't issue those shares until we meet a certain criteria of the going public process.
Okay.
So when that can happen, we will then discuss it on friendly terms with Commerce, giving Commerce ample time to promote that fact because it certainly is a motivating factor for Commerce shareholders. Depending on where Capacitor's at, and you see what I mean, it's quite delicate, but it's important, and we want that distribution to happen. You can count on that, Alan, because I'm a Commerce shareholder.
I am too, so.
All right.
Yeah.
We will work to get you your shares.
Yeah.
That means I'll get my shares.
Yeah, so that would happen when it's gone public, though, once it's a public company.
We could do it slightly before.
Okay.
Which was what Capacitor would angle for. So because those shares then could be free trading on the opening, which is a good thing. So we will endeavor to do that, but there's hoops that we have to jump through.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Happy to answer them. Or of course, if you feel more comfortable in sending us an email, please do that. We appreciate everyone being here today. Thank you.